Good place to go on Tuesday night to daven. Good morning, welcome. It's wonderful to see you. For those of you who are not from LA, this is the coldest day of the year. Today's the winter solstice. Today is the longest night, the shortest day of the year. So those of you who are not from Los Angeles, Chicago, Milwaukee, from New York, Boston, Syracuse, and it plunges to a frigid 67 degrees here in LA, and we all take out our winter coats and our mufflers and our gloves, and we swear about how freezing cold it is, and you're looking at us going, wow, it's the warmest day since. Anyway, that's LA. Welcome. We're really delighted to have you. Welcome. This is VBS Torah Study. It's great to see you. Today is the winter solstice. It really is. So today we will celebrate the power of light to overcome the powers of darkness. Rabbi, why don't you introduce your family, because they're now part of our
just moved down the block.
Well, tell us who they are. So
This is my sister Joanne and my niece Jessica. And in our family, there's two things when you move to a place.
yeah,
Where is the nearest Chinese restaurant?
bamboo.
Where is the nearest shul?
Okay,
Those
go,
are the only
Ventura Boulevard. Make a left. A mile down on the right, Bamboo Cafe.
Yes.
Tell them Feinstein sent you. Costs you 10% more. You know? Anyway, thank you. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Genghis Khan? Well, there's a place down here right past. There's a place right past here called Chicken Star, and Chicken Star makes pretty good Chinese, pretty good bad Chinese food. I mean, there's good Chinese food and bad Chinese food. Bamboo is good Chinese food. In the bad Chinese food category, there's good bad Chinese food, and there's bad Chinese food. So California Wok is good bad Chinese food. And then beyond that, if you want fleischiks, if you want kosher, Chicken Star is good bad. No, it's good. It's good bad Chinese food. But there's a lot of bad Chinese food.
The best Chinese restaurant in LA, other than Yan Chow,
Yeah,
is 5 minutes from here.
yeah.
Sam Woo's.
Sam Wu, yeah.
Sam Woo's, which is right on Victory and Sepulveda, right there.
Oh, is that where it is? Yeah, okay, yeah. See, then there's real Chinese food, you know, which is it's really hard for people of my religion to eat, because it's, you know, it's like pork fat. That's what it's, you know, everything is fried in, you know, Casa del Chazer Schmaltz is that's my favorite Mexican restaurant, you know. So it's just, you do what you can. Anyway, welcome. It's good to see you. I want to wish everybody a really good Shabbos. It's a good Shabbos. A couple things going on. Following Torah study, of course, you're all invited to come in. There's a davening this morning. We have the USY kids visiting from the East. They're going to their intern. You're here. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. That's so cool that you're here. Where are you guys from? New Jersey. Where? Central New Jersey? What's the name of the town? East Brunswick. I know East Brunswick. Johnson & Johnson is Rutgers is in East Brunswick. Johnson & Johnson is in East Brunswick. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Nice to have you here. So these wonderful USY kids from northern New Jersey and from Metney, from Metropolitan New York are here. And they're celebrating Shabbos with us. Metropolitan New York. It's called Metney. It's the region's name. The country used to be divided up into regions. So we're far west. So only someone on the East Coast would call this far west, right? And then Metney, Hagalil, Hatzafon, EMSA. I used to be a USYer. I used to know all the cheers. What? Cruzy, Isi Rusi. Yeah, and then Chuzy, which is Chicago. Anyway, we have some wonderful kids. About 100 kids are staying, and they'll be davening this morning. If you want to have some real ruach, some real joy, join them. Cantor Barron is doing his beautiful musical service in the beautiful Burdorf Hall, starlit Burdorf Hall. Following that, there's lunch. It was enchiladas yesterday, but I don't know if that's what's coming back. We'll see what happens. And then Parsha group is meeting today. With Judy. That's good. This next week is very quiet, except for one thing. Well, a couple of things I'll tell you. The one nice thing is Monday night at 5:30, we're having a community candle lighting. So if you bring a menorah, bring a Chanukiah, bring some candles, bring a dreidel. We'll light candles. We'll have some donuts. We'll play some dreidel. If you want to bring a picnic dinner, you can do that, and then we're going to show a film for the kids. There'll be a few families that'll do that. Otherwise, you can go down to Bamboo and get some Chinese food. So that's Monday night. One sad thing I have to announce is that on Thursday, Ronnie Lever passed away. Ronnie, who sat right where Jessica's sitting, sweet, sweet, sweet man. Just a few days short of his 90th birthday. He was well. I mean, he was here last week. He was in shul all week. He had lunch with Ron Wilson. And then on Thursday, he wasn't feeling well. Went to the emergency room, sat down, and was just checked out. I mean, his son is a doctor and said, we don't exactly know what it is except that he was 90, and it was his time. So we want to pray that Ronnie's soul is at peace. His funeral will be Monday at 1 o'clock at Eden, and everyone would like to come in. Then Miriam's Sunday, yeah. And then Monday evening around 6:30, we're going to be at Ronnie's house to have a meal and with his family and say Kaddish with him there. And then his family lives everywhere else, so we'll remember him here in Minyan during the week. So we'll say Kaddish for him. Okay? So that's sad. He was a wonderful, sweet soul. If you want, by the way, copies of his autobiography, he wrote an autobiography called God Calls Me Ronnie. And there's a bunch of copies on the credenza in the hallway. You're welcome to take one. It's a gift to the community. And it's a wonderful story about, if you want to get a sense of what L.A. Jewry looks like from the point of view of the people that settled here, it's really a great story. So good. So that's where we are. And then this rest of the week is be very quiet. The shul is closed Tuesday and Wednesday, so that the staff can have their holiday. We open up again on Thursday. We'll be back here Friday night, of course, this Minyan, and we'll be back here Shabbos with Torah study. We're always studying Torah. And then the following week, where's Jack? Jack Donitz's daughter's getting married on Erev New Year's, so we want to wish Ufruf next Shabbos, so come and eat tuna fish. Jack's paying for it. It's great. So thank you. So, and Mel's birthday. Mel is 90, yes? We want to celebrate Mel's birthday. Happy birthday, Mel. Mel's celebrating his birthday next week as well. Okay, we good? Everybody good? Any other announcements I forgot? Then things are quiet until we start again in the new year, 2020. And of course, there's nothing in the news this week, so we won't even talk about that. So. There was one very important event. I don't know if you saw this. 2 Carnival cruise ships crashed into each other in Cozumel. What was happening is one ship was docked and the other guy was trying to park. I am such a bad parker. And to know that a guy was trying to park a cruise ship and smashed into another cruise ship, and it was of the same line, so there's nobody to sue. I mean, I would do that. I would smash into my wife's car trying to squeeze into a parking place. The fact that I can't parallel park doesn't feel nearly as bad. I mean, of course, he's driving a cruise ship and I have a Toyota, but listen. So just in case you were wondering what's happening in the news, that's what's happening in the news. All right?
Where was it?
It was in Cozumel. And the people were already on the dock and they were watching this. Going like, holy. Yes, I mean, it was like, turn, It's like, anyway, today, what I'd like to do today is something that I actually talked about on the holidays, because I want to go back now, look into the text. You can imagine a theory of personality which would posit the idea that people are who they are. That we're born into the world with a certain set of constituent personality traits, and that these personality traits flower during the course of our lives, and that we are who we are. And that people are who they are, and they don't change. And that change is really impossible for human beings. Maybe small tweaks. I mean, you can move from cornflakes to Cheerios in the morning, blue shoes to black shoes to brown shoes. But basically, the character trait, the character that you are, the personality that you display, the way that you behave to people in the world, the way that you are, is who you are. It's who you are. And that there's no sense in trying to change people. I mean, I think deep down, in some sense, this is the theory of original sin in Christianity. You're born sinful, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it unless you give it up to a higher power, right? The Torah, I'm going to suggest to you, offers us a different idea. The Torah offers us an idea that personality is dynamic. We are becoming. It's not a question of who you are, it's a question of in which direction you're becoming. Think for a moment just of a couple of scenes that indicate this, right? From the very beginning, the very first narrative of human beings in the world, We're put into the garden, and God says, don't touch my magic trees. So right away, you're faced with choice. Choice is, the Torah says, the first fact of being human. Am I obedient or disobedient? Am I cooperative or am I resistant, oppositional? What am I? Right? What is the nature of my being? And then, if you take a look, remember the Jacob stories, we looked at these very carefully. What are the two principal images of the Jacob stories, right? The two dreams. In the beginning of his journey, he has a dream of a ladder with the angels, Yordim, Olim v'Yordim, going up and going down. There's a dynamism to that, up and down. He could have dreamed of a mountain. Nothing happens on a mountain. It sits there. A boulder, a rock. But he dreams of something dynamic, a staircase, and the angels are going up and down. And then in the second dream, it's the wrestling. A man comes and wrestles with him till dawn. And wrestling is a highly dynamic sport. No two moments are the same. You're always shifting and turning and stressing and pulling and crushing. I mean, this is what wrestling is. It's this dynamism. I think these are images of personality. I think the question is, the Torah is trying to put forth an idea, which is a very modern idea. So the Torah is trying to do it in its way, its sort of mythic way, to suggest that we aren't given, we aren't set, we aren't fixed, we aren't stuck. We're always becoming. We're always becoming. And the question is, in which direction are you becoming? In which direction is your personality? Are you Olim or Yordim, as the angels on the ladder were, going up or going down? In which way are you becoming? And choice is a huge factor. No doubt the way our parents treated us when we were very small has a big influence. Freud's absolutely correct, or Bettelheim is absolutely correct. No doubt we probably even carry, as Jung said, a collective unconscious of the experience of our ancestors. And no doubt there are there are psychophysical things, there are elements of the brain that turns us into certain kinds of people. No doubt, of course. But fundamentally, the Torah is saying you have choice. You have choice in who you become and what you become and how you, and you are therefore, if you have choice, you are therefore responsible. And therefore, a focus on who I am and what I'm becoming and what I want to become is really part of being human. Am I the person I'm meant to be? So I'm going to suggest that we have two stories of becoming right here at the end of Genesis. The one is the story we had last week about Jacob. And what we saw, which was, of course, so interesting, is that in the end of the story, his name is changed from Jacob to Yaakov to Yisrael. Yaakov, who is the grasper. He's the man at your heels, grasping, give me, get me. Manipulative, selfish, self-absorbed. And then at the end, he becomes Yisrael, the one who struggles, and it's a different sense of who he is. He's becoming something else, but his name doesn't stick. He keeps going back to being Yisrael, because change is never fully complete. Never fully complete. I tell you, my daughter is a psychologist, and good one. And she's worked for many years at Beit Tshuva with recovering addicts. And one of the things she had to get used to is that relapse is part of the process of recovery from addiction. When it first happened to her, I remember this very distinctly. So Nessa's working, and she's a psychologist at Beit Tshuva, and she has a slate of clients, and she's seeing her clients, and there's these young people, and they're working hard, and they're trying to get well, and she's so proud that they're making progress. And she comes we have dinner Friday nights together, and she comes to Friday night, and she looks absolutely devastated. I said, what happened? She said, I lost one of my guys. I said, what do you mean you lost one of your guys? Well, you know, they have, the farther into the program you get, the longer your furloughs get. The guy had a furlough. You can come in if you want. There's Torah in here if you'd like. You can use a little. There's two kids here. They're lovely. They're from East Brunswick, and they're enjoying learning the Holy Torah. So when they're bored, I'll send them. But until then, they're sleeping comfortably. So, all right. You can send other kids in here if they'd actually like to learn something. Okay? Okay, good. Take care. That's Cameron, who's our youth director. Thanks. Cam. So she says to me, so you have to know that relapse is part of the process. So she said the guy had a furlough, and he met up with some of his old friends, and they gave him heroin. and he started using. The problem with addicts physiologically is that the longer you're clean from your addiction, right, the more your body resets to where you were before. So what happens is he shot heroin in the dosage that he was used to using when he quit, and that was an overdose. And he OD'd. He overdosed, and he died. A young guy, 26, 27-year-old kid. And my daughter says, I lost one of my this is her language, I lost one of my guys, one of my boys. I mean, she really takes ownership of this, you know. Now, she's come to understand in the process of the work she does that this is not unusual. This is part of the process. What you try to do is make sure they don't overdose, but it's very common. It's because the change doesn't always stick the first time. You see how the change, I mean, all of us who have tried to go on a diet and then regain the weight, right? I mean, me, I've lost 1,000 pounds. Yeah, easy, right. You know, because I've never met a babka I couldn't enjoy, you know, because in the end, I know babkas, right? Right? You know, you go back. So the question is, how do you get the change to stick? So Yaakov is a really interesting case of a dynamic personality who's growing but doesn't finish. Today we're going to meet another guy. And he's the other great character. Well, there's two. Yosef is two, but the character of Judah. And what's critical about the character of Judah, just like with Jacob, is that we are his namesake. We are Judeans. Judeans becomes Jews. So when you're talking about him, you're talking about us. And there are 3.5 images of the character Judah in the Bible. 3.5 images, okay? So let's take the first image today. So this is in today's Torah portion. Yaakov, God bless him, has a whole bunch of kids, right? Has 30. You guys have to go to the U.S. Wires? Great. Have a great time. Thanks for being with us. You get bored, you come back. You tell them the rabbi said we can come back, okay? Because we're much nicer than the kids are. We'll see you later. Cute. Wonderful kids. Wonderful kids. They sat quietly the whole time. All right. So we have here the world's brattiest brother in Joseph. I don't know how many of you have ever had brothers who wore their brattiness as a flag on the sleeve. I mean, that's what he's got, and these egocentric dreams and the tattletale. I mean, everything that you could hate in a brother. So what happens? He goes looking for the brothers, and he finds them. Turn to page 229, please. Genesis 37. So his father sends him to go look in on his brothers. And the brothers are out there, you know, the brothers are out to Dotan. They're pasturing the sheep. They saw him from afar, which is a great phrase, right? Vayiro oto mirachok. They never look closely. I mean, that's a beautiful phrase. It never occurred to them. Remember, he lost his mother when he was a little kid. His mother died giving birth to his brother Benjamin. It never occurred to these guys that not having a mother might have an effect on a kid. It never occurred to these guys that being a little brother to 10 older brothers is a big deal. They only saw him from afar. And before he came close, they conspired to kill him. And they said to one another, "Here comes the dreamer." It's a great line. "Let's kill him." I felt that way by my brothers. Let's kill him. Throw him into a pit. Then we can say a beast devoured him, which wouldn't be untrue, by the way. And the beast would be the jealousy and rage of his brothers. We shall see what becomes of his dreams. This is cynicism. But when Reuben heard it, he tried to save him. He said, "Let's not take his life." But Reuben is the oldest brother, and he should have some power. But Reuben is adult. I mean, he's just not bright, and he doesn't have any power. He doesn't know how to do things. He makes plans and can't keep them. Shed no blood, cast him into the pit in the wilderness, but don't touch him. So intending to save him. When Joseph came, they stripped him of his tunic, the tunic that he was wearing, and they took him and cast him into the pit. The pit was empty. There was no water. So you're in the middle of the desert, scary desert. and you throw him into the pit. The Midrash asks, why did it have to tell us that there was no water in the pit? The question is, what was in the pit? And Rashi has this thing about snakes and scorpions, right? Snakes and scorpions, which is going to be the world that Joseph lives in. He lives in a world of snakes and scorpions. In the house with his brothers, when he gets to Egypt, his whole life is surrounded by this is a kid who has to claw for his existence his whole life. And they sat down to a meal. This is such a wonderfully cynical image. Your brother is in a pit dying, and you sit down to eat burritos. Pass the Corona, right? And you just have to get the split screen here, right? They're eating, and he's screaming for his life, but they ignore him because they're eating. And looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilad, with camels bearing all this stuff. And Judah said, now here's Judah, ready? Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain by killing him? What a line. Whew. What do we gain by killing him? And covering up his blood. Let's sell him. Let's sell him. Now, what does it mean to sell a pretty 17-year-old into Middle Eastern slavery? Yes, that's the right word. Oy, oy, oy. I mean, there are fates worse than death. This is a fate worse than death. Think of the phrase. I mean, just what do we get by, what do we get by selling him? By killing him, right? Ma betza. Ma betza. Betza means profit, gain. Ma betza. What's the profit in just killing him? Let's sell him. So what do you get? What is Judah? And that's what. And his plan is going to work. So who is Judah in this scene? What is the glimpse we get of our ancestor Judah in this scene? Yes, Douglas.
It's like the evil of Shylock. All I want is the money. It's
right.
Like, why should I kill him when I can make money off of him?
Yeah.
His moral compass is so off.
There is no moral compass.
Well,
it's completely transactional.
You just called his brother adult, and his brother at least knew it was wrong.
His brother knew it was wrong, but couldn't do anything about it. Judah actually has the capacity to do stuff. He's the leader of the brothers.
And he does wrong.
He's the leader. He has the power to lead. He has the charisma to lead, but he has no morals. It's only a question of what do I get out of this, right? Yes, want to add something? Yes.
Why do you concentrate only on his evil thoughts? Why don't you think that he was trying to mediate?
No.
Find a better way.
Nah. You're too sweet. You're too kind. You're too good. You have too good a heart. Bobby, you have too good a heart. You don't. First of all, you don't know brothers. I was an older brother. I know what this is like. That's number one. Number two, yes, this is, by the way, what the Midrash does. The Midrash is trying to save him. He'll sell him. He'll go find him. Nonsense. There are fates worse than death, and selling a pretty 17-year-old into Middle Eastern slavery is a fate worse than death, and Judah does it without a moment's hesitation, because ma betza, what do I get from just killing him and throwing him into a pit? This way, I don't have to raise my hand. I don't have to kill him. I can go home with a pocket full of change. So cynical. Go ahead. You can give your interpretation, wrong as it might be. You're not going to convince me. I love you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
First off, I agree with this gentleman over here.
Yes.
He just raised his hand first. The other thing is, explain to us why it has to be as extreme. Granted, I didn't have brothers, but I know some people I don't like. I don't want to go kill them. I mean, this is extreme. Can't you just be annoyed?
Who
what
be
are we
annoyed?
learning from the story where they hate him so much they want to kill him? That's extreme.
Yeah, that's the point.
No, what?
That's the point. There is a streak in these guys, because the whole Bible, that's what all of Genesis has been about, right? Two brothers, one blessing. Jacob and Esau, right? Kill him over the blessing. Okay? Isaac and Ishmael, send the kid out in the desert to die. The whole book is about you either get the blessing or you die. It's a fight to the death for the Father's approval. It's a fight for the death for the father's blessing. It's a fight to the death for the birthright. That's what the whole book is about. Cain and Abel. I mean, think about Cain and Abel, the first two born human beings in the world, right? God didn't pay attention to his offering, so he goes and offs his brother. Like so the idea is that this is like somehow planted in us. This is reflex. This is impulse. This is, and can you control it? That's the great question. Last week, as you all remember, we saw a great triumph. Esau approaches Jacob with 400 soldiers, has every right, every means, every opportunity to kill him, to get his vengeance, to take back the birthright and the blessing. And what does he do? He embraces his brother. Somehow, again, the dynamic of personality. Yes, this exists in the heart of human beings, but it's not the last word. There are other impulses. There are other possibilities of human development. And we saw that last week. That's why Esau becomes this great hero last week. The Midrash doesn't want to make him out to be. As we said, the Midrash wants to flatten him and make him into everything bad in human existence, but he's not. Last week, you saw this man had opportunity, means, and motive. I think I watched Law and Order. That's what I... right? Opportunity, means, and motive to kill his brother, and he doesn't. He embraces him and says, I'll be right with you. He says, enough. So now we have the same thing, the same impulse in the heart of the brother, and they want to kill him. Okay? Yes, please.
Judah does have moral compass. Isn't he the one that did not deny that he was the father of Tamar?
Wait, we haven't got there yet. That hasn't happened yet. That's okay. Long in the future. Wait, we're going to come to that. This is how he starts out.
Okay, but doesn't the Bible talk later, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And says that Judah was thinking of coming back. Oh, he wants to sell him. Okay, I got it.
No, that was Reuben. Reuben was going to save him. Judah wants to sell him because he wants to walk home with a pocket. Look what he gets out of it. He gets his milk money and he gets rid of the pain in the ass brother, and he doesn't have to hurt him. Pop, I didn't kill him. Maybe he got sold to a caravan.
Just before we move on, is a Midianite and an Ishmaelite interchangeable?
Oh, that's you missed Rabbi Gelman's brilliant exposition of this last year. Is it published someplace? You know what we'll do? Don't do the whole thing again because it's beautiful. Rabbi Gelman gave us a wonderful exposition on this last year. And I will put it up. I'll put it up on the website so you can all read it. But in a word, his midrash, his way of understanding, because you have two different words, Midianite and Ishmaelite. And are there two groups of guys? Is it one group of guys? Rabbi Gelman figured this out, right? And puts Ishmael back into the story. Ishmael, the rejected brother, who is also the guardian angel of rejected brothers. And he's the one who rescues Joseph. He's the one who makes sure that Joseph gets put in the house of Potiphar, where he's going to be taken care of. Now, Ishmael couldn't have imagined what would happen there, but that was Rabbi Gelman's beautiful midrash. You want to add something? Yeah. The other way to read it is that the word Midianite is not meant here as an ethnicity. It's meant here as a lifestyle, in the way we would use the word Bohemian. If someone's a Bohemian, it can mean one of two things. Either they are people from Bohemia, or they live a certain kind of lifestyle, right? We would use the word gypsy, okay? In New York, you say, you have a gypsy cab, right? They don't mean that these people are Roma from Romania. Midianites in the Bible can either be people from Midian, like Moses' wife, or they can mean Bedouins, wanderers, nomads. And that's the other way to read it. So it was a caravan of people from Arabia, Ishmaelites, and they were nomads, and that's what he saw. So that's the other way to read it. But I recommend the midrash, and I'll put it up. I'll steal it from and we'll put it up on. Rabbi Gelman, by the way, you should all know, is not over the many years wrote many beautiful midrashim in a traditional style, but incredibly imaginative, and published them in what was once a great magazine, Moment Magazine. It's still around, but it's a different kind of magazine than it was. But in the old days, it was a really, really wonderfully scholarly magazine, and these were wonderful. And I've stolen these right and left, right? The greatest compliment rabbis pay to each other is to steal each other's material. And I tell you, I give Gelman almost as good as Gelman gives Gelman. Yeah, it's yes, please.
We're talking about the brothers selling Joseph into slavery, yet nowhere in the text of the Torah does it say that. It says the Midianites came by and pulled him out of the pit.
No, it says the Ishmaelites. It's a whole transaction between Ishmaelites and Midianites.
Right,
but
but
you don't know whether it's the same guys or different guys.
But nowhere does it say that the brothers sold him.
Yeah.
One of those groups pulled him out of the pit
and
sold him to the others.
Right.
So how do we get that they sold him? Okay, Judas.
No, in the end they didn't. In the end they put him in a pit. They were eating their burritos. This caravan comes along. The caravan sees a kid in the pit. The caravan takes the kid out of the pit. They take him to Egypt, and when the brothers go back to pick him up, he's not there.
Okay.
Which is why the brothers really didn't know where he was. Which is why they could sit at Jacob's Shabbos table for the next 21 years with this grieving, mourning father. And while they knew they put him in a pit, they didn't know what happened to him. They mamish thought he was gone, eaten by something, taken by someone. They don't know where he is. Because if they really knew he was in Egypt, they could have told, one of them would have told Dad, go down to Egypt and find him, right? So we don't find that out till later. If you have a moment, yes, please, go ahead.
But isn't it also true when they put him in the pit and when they were eating, they believed the destiny of the family was threatened by what Joseph was talking about?
Well, that's a really sweet way to put it. Again, you guys are such...
And that is one of the reasons they can eat so comfortably.
That's just bleeding heart liberal Jews, Yeah, the destiny of the family. No, these were brothers who hated their brother. Stop giving it beautiful moral overlays. I respect you. I honor you. I understand your interpretations. For those who are guests this morning, I don't ever do this. I usually reward everyone's interpretation. This morning, I know it's. It's a bad case of Gelman disease.
Turned you into a dick.
It's.
I did that.
I hope the microphone didn't pick that up.
The rest of my life,
Wes, when you stand before the throne of judgment, they're going to have.
I made him a dick. I did it. And I'm proud.
Yeah, all right. My father is here, for God's sakes. Yes, please. Who's got the mic? Brian.
In other Torah studies, you've suggested one way to read this is some sort of Freudian, it's all a dream and these are different characters in the dream.
Well, it's not Freudian. These are the archetypes of our people. Yeah.
Right. So if we read it this way, I see this argument, right, and this conversation they're having is kind of like what happens within the mind of that heroin addict you were talking about, right?
That's very good. Yeah.
I want to kill him. Maybe I don't. Maybe I shouldn't. All this kind of conversation.
Yeah. It not only that, but let me just, okay, so if you want to get into that kind of way of looking at it as an archetype story, for the time, for a great deal of biblical history, from the time that we arrive in Eretz Canaan until the time we are exiled to Babylon, the two great powers will be Joseph and Judah. Joseph, which is the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh in the north, and Judah, which are the tribes of Judah and Benjamin in the south. And there will be rivalry between these two factions. And so you could also read this as a political narrative of the origin of that rivalry, right? I mean, imagine if you told the story of the American Civil War, as Yankees and Southerners, as a political, as a personal family rivalry. So this is going to be part of it. And then for the rest of Jewish history, you're exactly right. I mean, this is, the great question is, we are a small people threatened on every side, and yet we can't seem to make common cause. What is it in our character that puts us this way? It's a very interesting option. Yeah, you wanna
Yeah,
ask?
but look, I think you're completely right on your analysis here. And no however, you got it, you nailed it.
Well, you've made him gentle.
These
Thank
are
you.
12 little
Yeah, not nice people.
not nice people.
Yeah.
And the reason is so simple to see, and that is the Hebrew word for murder.
Yeah,
The Hebrew word for murder is shvichas damim.
yeah,
So it means to spill blood.
okay.
So and they knew they were going to have to face their father. They knew that.
Mm-hmm.
All they wanted to be able to say to their father, Jake, was, "We did not spill his blood. If someone else spilled his blood, fine.
Yeah,
But we didn't do it."
right. It's the narrow interpretation.
Right, and in the Midianite Ishmaelite thing,
Right.
it's because the Ishmaelites were not slavers.
Right.
So they took Midianites with them to handle the slave details of the caravan because that's where the money was.
Right.
And that's how it all happened. And Esau married
Ishmael's daughter.
Ishmael's daughter, Malat, and that's how Ishmael knew what was happening in the family.
Yeah.
And because it was such a shanda of what had happened about how Jacob had stolen the birthright, it never was told in his family.
Yeah.
So there was an asymmetry. Ishmael knew, his family knew, but Jacob's family never knew.
Right.
This is a resolution. This is a resolution of all the conflicts, which you rightly said
Yeah.
is a conflict about the covenant. That's
Yeah.
it.
In the back, gentleman in the back. Yeah. Great hat. You have my admiration. Hi.
But aren't we forgetting in regard of what you started to say in regard of the dynamic of the personality, and the main character of this story is that Joseph, with all of these diversities and all of these difficulties, still goes to the pit of the dungeon with all of the death, and that's the time of his initiation to become some kind of a prophet and some kind of a king and some kind of a interpreter of the dreams.
Yeah.
And isn't this the dynamic of the personality in regard of what we make up of ourselves?
Yeah.
With all of the diversities around us, all of the difficulties.
That's a very nice point. So the question is going to be, we're watching the flow of two personalities here. One is Joseph and the other is Judah. Bruce, did you want to add something? One is Joseph and one is Judah. And Joseph's personality is going to be shaped by his adversity as well. And we'll see where that comes out. I'm going to ask you to turn some pages now. So we can lose this page. I want you to come back with me now, all the way back to page 173. I want to get a glimpse of where Judah comes from. And then we're going to see what happens to him, and then we're going to find the middle stage, right? So remember the story. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, his cousin, madly in love with her. Worked 7 years. Finally, the night of the wedding, her father switches the girls, and he wakes up with Leah. And he screams at Laban, his uncle, "Why'd you do this to me?" And he says, "That's the way we do things. Give me 7 more years. I'll give you the girl you love." So he marries her. Now he has 2 wives, the wife he loves and the wife he got stuck with, right? Watch what happens in the story, page 173. The Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, and Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and named him Reuven. Reuven from the word ra'ah, to see. It means, the Lord has seen my affliction, but it also means, now my husband will love me. You hear the desperation? Who is Reuven? Reuven is the name of her need, her brokenness, her desperation. Now he's going to love me. Now he will see me. Now I will not be invisible in this family anymore. Now I'm somebody. I'm a mom. I have a role. I'm the mother of his child. Now he will come and be with me and love me. But it doesn't work because he's still stuck on Rachel, right? And she conceived again because God has a sense of humor, right? And declares, this is because the Lord has heard me, from the word Shema. Shema Yisrael, Shimon. Because I was unloved and he's given me this one too. Now my voice is heard in the family. Now he's going to hear my pain, my husband, and he's going to come and be with me and bring me comfort. She still dreams of the husband she ought to have, and he's not it. So she conceives and bore again. And this time she says, he will be attached to me. Lilavot means to be connected, to attach, to accompany me. And his name is Levi. So 3 sons. My husband will see me and love me. My husband will hear me and love me. My husband will be with me and love me. And finally get to the 4th one. Listen to the 4th one. The 4th one is, she conceived again, and she bore a son, and declared, this time I will praise the Lord. Odeyah. What's missing? Yes. Yehudah means I will give thanks to God. My husband will see me. My husband will hear me. My husband will be with me. The 4th one is, to hell with him. I'm a woman. I now have 4 kids. I have now beat the entire family total, right? Mama Sarah had 1 kid. Mama Rivka had 2 kids. I've had 4. I won. I'm now in history. I don't need him anymore. Judah is the name of her self-possession. This is where she becomes somebody. This is where she becomes her own self. And he is the name of her confidence, her place in the world. Reuven is the name of her need. Shimon is the name of her need. Levi is the name of her need. And by the way, what's going to happen? Reuven is ineffectual. He's basically a castrated male. He has no power to be anything in the world. Can't do anything. Shimon and Levi become terrorists. No, seriously, their need gets turned into, they're the ones who zap, they're the ones who take down Shechem. They're terrorists, right? You're going to have this story later in Numbers with Pinchas, where a prince of the tribe of Shimon starts an affair with a princess of the Midianites, and it's a Levite, Pinchas, who skewers them. They're terrorists. That's what you get, terrorists, out of need, out of pain. But Yehudah? Who needs these? Who needs him? This is, you see, that's where the confidence comes from. So, the confidence, I suggest, with due respect to my dear colleagues and friends, ends up in this cynical, terrible place. He's in charge. Judah is a threat to, Joseph is a threat to Judah. Because he knows that he has the confidence to run this family. He knows that he could gain the birthright. He knows that he deserves to be in charge. He knows that he can run the family. But Joseph is a threat to him. There's actually a personal motivation here. Because if he can get rid of Joseph, there's no competition. None of these idiots can compete with me now. Plus the fact that his dreams just make him the hated brat of the family. Plus the fact that the caravan comes by. Let's sell the little son of a bitch. That's the picture you get, ladies and gentlemen, of your ancestor. You want to know who you are, you Jews? That's Shylock, right? Now, I'll get your comment in a second. That's not how it ends up. How does it end up? Let's read the end of the story. Then we'll go back to the middle. Okay? Turn to page 274. Let's get your comment, please. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Douglas.
When Leah names her 4th child Judah, because, praise the Lord, I've persevered. It's not only that she had more children than the other, but she knew of the prophecy that there were going to be the 12 tribes that came from Jacob. And by having a 4th, she now had more than any of the other wives could have.
Well, yes, that's beautiful. She knew of the prophecy, right? She knew that one day there'd be a warrior named Judah Maccabees. That's why she knew that. Well, I don't know. Yes, beautiful. That's beautiful. She's a mama, and she's a woman who wants to be loved. And after she realizes, there's nothing I can do in the world to make him love me, but I don't need him anymore. I have 4 sons. Right, go ahead.
I think you're reading a lot into it.
Of course. I'm a rabbi. I'm licensed to read into it.
But I'm saying you're reading a lot to try to get your way
I know.
Your story.
I know.
Your story is wrong.
Okay. A bad case. Everyone's got it now. Listen. Daryl, you have to learn the word however.
I got that. I got that on Tuesday nights.
There you go.
Anyway, but she went through these three other sons and these three trying to transformations or trying to get to where she wanted to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't we just say the story on its own stands on its own? She got to the fourth and said, right, forget about him. I'm going to be self-actualized and just have a connection with God.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So
that's right. But I'm suggesting
maybe the story ends right there. Why do you have to then break it into...
Because I think that Judah's leadership in the family, the Bible does games like this about how you're born, right? His leadership in the family, his charisma, his power to lead the community, to lead the people, comes from, in some sense, is either foreshadowed or comes from the fact that his mother's attitude is so different with this kid than with the others. The other kids are really deficient in some way because they represent her deficiency. But he has herself, as you said, self-possession, self-actualization, and that's why he is the whole one. Now, turn to page 1. But you're right. Look, I know I'm reading into this. Of course I am. I mean, it demands that. 274. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. My God, you people keep asking questions.
As a bleeding heart, whatever.
Yeah.
Could you not interpret the fact that Yehuda, the birth of Yehuda, coincides with a renewed interest or new interest by Jacob for Leah? Because she's thanking God. Could she not be thanking God because now she finally achieved her goal?
Yeah, exactly right. And does he turn to her at that point? Is Judah the moment when Jacob begins to realize that she's somebody and that he can love her in a certain way? Could be. I mean, that's a beautiful midrash too. That he's also the name of the newfound love. Look, again, those of you who are married, you know this. You know, you begin with a certain kind of love in a marriage, and if you stay married a while, and you go through ups and downs together, you discover other kinds of love, right? Other qualities of love. And the nice thing about if it's a successful marriage, as it were, you don't marry the same person once, you marry that same person many times. Because you go through these stages where your love develops, and this could represent a new kind of love. Yeah, please.
So to refer back to what you said a minute ago, so the tribal relationships between the family, Leah's sons, Judah actually inherits his mother's resentment against these younger brothers. So the tribal relationships that develop between Judah and Benjamin in the south and Manasseh and Ephraim in the north begins here, or began in their wedding.
If you're right. If you're reading this as a political narrative, right? Yeah. But actually, it's the other.
Learning from you.
No. It's the other way around, though. You see, in the history of the kingdoms, right? King David was from Judea.
Right.
King Saul was from Ephraim.
Right.
David overcomes Saul. Judah overcomes Joseph and gains kingship over the people. Right? Solomon rules the people. He's Judean. Then the next thing that happens is when Rehoboam becomes king, which is Solomon's son, the northern tribes split away. So it's the younger brothers who revolt against Judah. It's Joseph's kids who revolt against Judah and say...
But it's still the Judah-Joseph thing.
It's the Judah-Joseph thing, right.
Which began here.
Which begins with the marriage, which begins with that night in the dark, so be careful who you sleep with, Page 274 is the end of the story. So I'm purposely going from the very beginning to the very end, skipping the middle. And I promise you we'll get to the middle. What happens at the end of the story? Right? The brothers go down to Egypt because there's famine in Canaan. We'll get this in the next couple of weeks, right? Joseph is vizier of Egypt. He's prime minister of Egypt. He's the second most powerful man in the world after Pharaoh. And he controls all the food supply. Egypt always had food because it always had a river. Even in times of drought, you could grow food by the Nile. So Egypt is the place of food. They have to go get food. They go down to get food. And there are machinations, and what happens ultimately is that Joseph, in the guise of the prime minister, takes Benjamin captive. They put his cup in the bag, then they arrest him, and they say, "You stole my cup." And we said, "Okay, I'll tell you what, I won't keep all of you, I'll just keep him." They don't know that it's their brother Joseph. They still think it's the prime minister. He has just said, I'm going to take your youngest brother. Remember, Jacob didn't want to let the youngest brother go down to Egypt, but it was the only condition on which they could get more food, and they needed more food for the family. And Benjamin is Joseph's only full brother, right? And inasmuch as Joseph hasn't seen his mother since he was a little kid, when he looks into Benjamin's face, he sees his mother's face. And he hasn't seen his mother's face since he was 3 years old or 4 years old. And when he sees Benjamin's face, he sees his own face. And when he sees, and he said, I'm going to take this one captive. So what Joseph has done, we'll see this as the story goes on, but I'm skipping quickly. What Joseph has done is completely replicate the situation earlier. The one brother will be taken and sold into slavery in Egypt. What are you going to do this time? It's 21 years later. Will you allow Benjamin to be sold in the same way that you allowed Joseph to be sold? Right? Everybody got that? So what happens? Joseph says, as the prime minister in Egypt, in Egyptian, he says, I'm keeping him. I'm keeping him. Okay? And here's the denouement of the story. This don't make you cry, you're a stone. Vayigash elav Yehuda. 3 words. Vayigash, he steps up. It's not steps up, he rises up. This is the change in his personality. He rises up. Vayigash elav Yehuda. Now the language is translated in formal language. It's formal language because remember, he thinks he's talking to the prime minister. In formal language, my lord means you, and your servant means me. Okay? So just translate it that way, right? Please, sir, my lord, let your servant appeal to you, and do not be impatient with me, you who are the equal of Pharaoh. You asked us, have we a father and another brother? We told you we have an old father, and there's a child of his old age, the youngest. His full brother is dead, so that he alone is left of the mother, and his father dotes on him. And you said, bring him down to me that I may set eyes on him. And we said, the boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave, his father would die. And you said, unless your youngest brother comes down, don't let me see your faces. And when we came back to your servant, my father, we reported your words to him. And our father said, okay, go back and procure food. And we answered, we can't go down only if our youngest brother is with us. Can we go down? For we may not show our faces to the man unless our youngest brother is with us. And your servant, our father, said to us, you know my wife bore me 2 sons, but one is gone. Alas, he was torn by a beast, and I've not seen him since. And if you take this one too, and he meets with disaster, you'll send my white head down to Sheol in sorrow. You'll kill me. Now, by the way, this is the first time that Joseph has heard the story of what happened to him from their point of view. He has spent the last 21 years asking himself, why no rescue party? Why didn't anyone come and get me? And that turned into great power of resentment because he's the prime minister of Egypt. Pick up the phone and call your dad. Right? By the way, there's a new app on the phone. Have you seen this? For all of you, there's a new app called Would It Kill You to Call? And if you have living parents, if you don't call your parent once a week, this thing comes up on your screen and it's a picture of your parent with a caption, Would it kill you to call? I think it's great, right? Joseph, why doesn't Joseph say to Potiphar? Why doesn't Joseph say to the jailers? Why doesn't Joseph say to Pharaoh, let me call my father? Because he believed that they gave up on him. Remember, it was the father who sent him to the brothers. He believed that it was all a plot to get rid of him, including the father. And now he hears something different. They think he's dead. That explains it. That explains so much. At least it opens it up again, right? So here we are. Now, if I come down to my father, your servant, my father, and the boy isn't with us, if you keep Benjamin, since his own life is so bound with his, that's a beautiful phrase. Nafsho kshura b'nafsho. We use that in the wedding, by the way. A soul entwined with a soul. His soul, remember at the beginning of the wedding, she walks around him 7 times? Because your soul is entwined with a soul. Right? When he sees that the boy's not with us, he will die. It's just a beautiful phrase. It's when he sees it, we will come back to the homestead, and he will count the camels, and he'll see. And your servants, we, will send the white head of our father down to Sheol, to death in grief. We'll kill him. Now, I have pledged myself for the boy, to my father, saying, if I don't bring him back with you, I stand guilty before my father forever. Therefore, please let me remain as a slave to you instead of the boy, and let the boy go back with his brothers. What has happened to Judah? What has happened to Judah since Ma Betzah? What profit do we get in killing the kid? What's happened to Judah? Guilt. Oh, gosh. No. Yes, guilt, of course, but no, transformation. He's grown his soul. He's worried about his father. Didn't worry about his father before, right? He cares about his place in the family. He understands who he is in the family. And he has a soul. He's grown a soul. For how can I go back to my father unless the boy is with us? Let me not be witness to the woe that would overcome my father. I would rather die as a slave in Egypt than go back and see what would happen to my dad if I had to tell him that the boy was taken captive as well. Wait, one at a time. I know it's a stunning scene. And the question I'm going to ask you is, how did we get from Ma Betzah, what profit do I get from killing him, to this? How do you get from there to there? And the answer is, this is the story of the transformation of Judah, which is, as a political and a cultural archetype for us, the story of our transformation. Yes, Douglas.
When we study Rabbi Showeiss, we study the difference between Adonai and Elohim.
Yeah.
And we talk about the God of transformative possibilities.
Right.
Did he ever write about this speech? Did he ever write about this?
No.
Did he ever speak about this as...
I did. He didn't. He spoke about other stuff.
He didn't see this as...
Of course he did, because, he did Torah study, but he didn't give a talk about this, right? I gave a talk about this.
But isn't this like the essence of his theology?
Well, yeah. the idea that God lives in the power of transformation, right? That's the power of transformation is a revelation of Adonai in the world, right? He was more concerned about the power to transform the world. So his sermons about World Watch, for example, about our power to transform the world, that's where he saw Adonai. The power to transform the self, that he didn't write about as much. Or who else? You had a question over here, yeah. Please.
This shows his conviction or his idea of thinking at the time of selling or killing.
Yeah.
In this point, he is referring to his decision that on that time that she voted or she asked for not to kill him. This is the fruit of what he thought at that moment.
You think so? Okay, yeah. Okay, lots of more comments. Yeah, Daryl.
So going back to, I don't know, maybe I'm going to take words out of the lady in the back, but why isn't it guilt? I mean,
it could be guilt. It could be guilt. But what's guilt? Tell me, what's the definition of guilt? Your mother. Yeah, that's... Hey, you don't talk about my mother, though. No, but what is guilt? Guilt is when the only way I can make you feel guilty is when you know you did something you shouldn't have done. And you look at it and it doesn't match your ideal self. And it's the gap between the person you are and the person you ought to be, and you feel that gap and it hurts. I can't make a person feel guilty. I can't make a person feel guilty. It's only when that person realizes that they have done something terribly wrong, and it doesn't match who they want to be. The difference between who I am and who I want to be is guilt, right? That's guilt. And maybe he does feel guilt because he realizes what he did, and he realizes now what he's called upon, and he's given a chance to undo it. And he's given a chance to protect his father in a way that he didn't. Remember, this is a guy who sat for 21 years at Jacob's Shabbos table every Friday night, looking at the old man weeping over his son, and knowing that even if he didn't raise his hand and spill the blood, he had something to do with the fact that the kid's not here at the table anymore. 21 years of watching what you did to your father? That'll have a number on your head, don't you think? But there's another story that I want to get to, and that's why. But go ahead, please.
Okay. I don't believe that Judah really sold Joseph for the money. I think he was just trying to keep him alive because the whole.
You are much nicer people than me. I have to tell you this. I am so honored, and I am so privileged to lead a congregation of people who are such nice people, who are so much nicer and have such better attitudes than me. Maybe it's because I'm an older brother. Maybe it's because I'm in the world. Okay, go ahead.
And
I'm more cynical.
Maybe he thought if he's still alive,
Yeah.
even if they sell him to slavery,
Yeah.
he would survive somehow. He wouldn't be dead completely, gone from the world.
Maybe.
Okay. The other thing is that you mentioned.
Ask her if she thinks OJ is still
why did
Go ahead. Never mind. Just keep going. Go ahead.
I want to laugh too. What was that?
Go ahead.
The other thing is that the question is really why didn't Joseph had all the power? Why didn't he send some people looking for his dad?
That's because that's a very good question.
Right, but I don't think that Joseph wasn't sure exactly what happened to him. He knew the brothers didn't like him.
Oh yeah.
But they took his clothes off.
Yeah, no, I know that.
They put him in a ditch.
Right.
So he knew the story. It's
Right.
not like he didn't know the story.
And it was the father who sent him there. So I think that as he's sitting in the pit, he suddenly realizes that everyone is against me. And his pain, his sorrow turns to rage at his family. And he raged at his family. He raged at his family. And then one day his family shows up in front of him. That's a story we'll read next week. His family shows up in front of him. I mean, and you spent 20 years thinking of what I'm going to do to those bastards when I get my hands around their necks. And suddenly they show up, right? I mean, this is the greatest Jewish family drama ever written. I mean, this is Avalon on steroid. I mean, this isn't you cut the turkey. This is you cut the world in half. All right, how did Judah grow a soul? Turn to page 233, chapter 38. We'll do this a little quicker than we should, but it's just delicious Torah. Ready? Delicious Torah, right? In the middle of the story of Joseph and his brothers, in the middle, smack in the middle, there's a narrative that doesn't belong. Remember Sesame Street? One of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. This story is completely out of context. It just shows up, boing. About the time that Judah left his brothers. About the time that Judah left his brothers. Kind of a stupid way to begin a story. All right, about the time that Judah left his brothers and camped near a certain Adulamite. I think that's a person, not a mineral, right? Whose name was Chira, right? There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and cohabited with her, and she conceived and bore a son and named him Come to dinner. Means to wake up in Hebrew, by the way. Means to wake up. Shua sounds remarkably like Yehoshua, which means salvation. Or if you're a Christmas fan, Jesus, right? Shua. She conceived again and bore a son named Onan. Okay? From Anonymous. Once again, she conceived and bore a son named Shelah. He was at Chaziv when she bore him. Okay. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, Mrs. And her name was Tamar. Tamar means a date palm. But Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to the Lord. What did he do? We don't know. But he pissed off God, right? And the Lord took his life. Poor young guy. He died before he could have kids. Okay? What's the rule? It's not legislated yet, but we'll have it legislated later. If a man dies... You have to marry the brother. Right, levirate marriage. If a man dies, it's actually, you don't have to, you are. If a man dies childless, okay? In order to keep his name alive, his wife is automatically married to his next surviving relative. Okay? It's not that she has a choice, he has a choice. They are automatically married. That's how it works. Okay? So, dies. As dies, Tamar then is automatically married to Onan. Okay? Then Judah said to Onan, join with your brother's wife and do your duty as a brother-in-law. Duty is, they will have a kid, and this kid will be called Ben-Er, the son of the firstborn. So Onan has a problem because he doesn't want to have a kid. He doesn't want to take the trouble to spend to raise a kid who's not going to bear his name, but will bear his older brother's name. Either he didn't like his older brother, or he just didn't want to spend the time. And men don't like raising other people's kids, right? That's the way it is. You want to raise your own. Okay? So what happens? So Onan, knowing that the seed would not count as his, so his resentment against his brother, or his unwillingness to do his duty to preserve his brother's memory, decides not to do what he's supposed to do. The sin is not masturbation or contraception. That's misreading. The sin is not doing your duty by your family to protect the name of your family member. That's the sin. Okay? That's where Onanism is a complete mistake. That's not the sin. The sin wasn't spilling seed. The sin was not protecting your brother's name through eternity. So it's not to provide an offspring for his brother. What he did was displeasing to the Lord. That really gets mad. I mean, there's a certain measure for measure. You wouldn't keep your brother's name alive, so guess what? Zap! Then Judah said to the daughter-in-law, stay as a widow in your father's house until Shelah grows up. And what's Judah thinking?
I don't want to marry her.
Yeah, why not?
Because she doesn't want to die.
Yeah, well, she's a dangerous chick, because first I gave him to one kid and he died, then I gave him another kid. This black widow, right? Remember the... Right. I'm Henry VIII, I am. Henry VIII, I am. Right? I got married to the widow next door. She'd been married 7 times before. Right. You don't want to marry her because you're afraid that, he doesn't want to lose a third kid, and somehow she's either a jinx, right, or she's a killer or something. There's something weird going on, right? So, because Judah said he too might die like his brothers. But if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't have a child, if he doesn't give the brother to Tamar, and by the way, Tamar can't marry anybody else. Marrying anybody else would be adultery, right? Unless there's a chalitza, and the chalitza hasn't been invented yet. The ceremony to release her from this relationship has not yet been invented. She can't marry anybody. So she's stuck too. But the problem here is that Judah's had 2 sons, and there's nobody in the world who bears their name. And the idea that a person would live in the world and no one would bear your name is something the Bible just can't countenance. It's like, a person who dies without having somebody in the world remembers them, right? That's known to say Kaddish for you, right? A long time afterwards, Shua's daughter, the wife of, it's interesting, that's the way she's identified by it. She's not identified as Tamar. We know she's Tamar. Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. Oh, that's not Tamar, that's Shua, that's the wife. She doesn't have a name. And when his period was up, he went to Timnah to the sheep shearers. So Judah loses his wife, okay, together with his friend Chira. Tamar was told, your father-in-law is coming up to Timnah for sheep shearing. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her face with a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown up and he hadn't been given to her as wife. So Shelah's grown up. Judah won't give his son Shelah to Tamar to do their duty, so they preserve the names of the 2 older brothers. And she decides she's going to do this. She's going to do this herself. She's going to protect the immortality of her first 2 husbands by having a child. And if it's not with the son, with Shelah, it'll be with the father, Judah. Everybody get this? Yeah. Okay. Now, what's the name of the place where she's sitting? Look at it again. This is on the test. This is on the test. No, Timnah is where we go to sheep shear. But just outside of Timnah, there's a little crossroads called Enaim. What does Enaim mean? Eyes. Anybody remember The Great Gatsby? There's this whole thing about the billboard with the eyes, right? Right? Eyes. Everything happens in the dark in these stories, right? Isaac gives the blessing in the dark. Jacob ends up with the wrong wife in the dark. And Tamar goes to a place called Wink Wink Einayim, which is she's going to carry out the drama. What is her motivation? She wants part of the family, but what does she want to do most of all?
She wants to continue the legacy of her past two husbands.
She wants not just legacy. She wants to offer immortality to his two husbands by getting pregnant, having kids who will then be named for them. So who is she loyal to? God and the family. She's loyal to the family. What's Judah? Is Judah the Judah we used to know? Let's find out. Ready? Judah had lost his wife. So he's a widower.
He's the instrument.
What?
He is the instrument.
He's the instrument, right. Right? She saw that Shelah had grown up and she had not been given him his wife. When Judah saw her, Judah sees this tent with a red light in front of it, right? No, it's the red tent district. This is the red light district. He took her for a harlot. The Hebrew is zonah, I think, right? Yeah, lizonah. She's a zonah, right? For she had covered her face. So he turned aside to the road and said, "Here, let me sleep with you," right? Hava avoy laich. Avoy laich doesn't mean sleep with you. It means let me have intercourse with you. Ki lo yada ki kalato. He didn't know that she was his daughter-in-law. So now, just the two people are coming into an interaction, and I want you to see the interaction because it's being drawn here quite beautifully. She was the wife of a man who died before they could have children. Then she was given to the brother who refused to do his duty by her to have a child to protect her first husband's name. He dies. Then she's supposed to marry the next brother. And she knows that it is her obligation to bear children so that these two men are remembered in the world and not forgotten from history. Her motivation is to do right by the family, to do right by the husbands. There's a sense of duty, responsibility, devotion even devotion. This is not an act of self. She's not after something. She's not after anything for herself. She does this. She could stay as a widow or she could remarry and ignore the law. But she does something remarkable. And in order to do that, but Judah is afraid and he doesn't want to do it. And then we found out one more thing about Judah. He enters this, he's a widower. He's lonely. I mean, it's not just sexual desire. I think the man is lonely. He's bereft. But instead of going and finding a friend or finding a wife, when Abraham was bereft, what did he do? He married Keturah and had a dozen more kids at the age of 111. As you say in French, Kanai Nahara, Right? I mean, you marry again and you continue your family life. But Judah isn't like that. What is Judah like? Judah is transactional. He thinks that that the loneliness and emptiness that he feels can be solved. He can buy it. He doesn't need to have a relationship. He can buy it as a commodity. A man goes to a prostitute to buy something, a commodity. He thinks that the solution to his loneliness, the solution to his emptiness, the solution to the hollow feeling he feels day after day can be purchased. By the way, I'm not an expert in this, so don't quote me, but from the things I see in TV and read, prostitutes will tell you, call women, sex workers will tell you that often they spend a lot more time talking to the client than actually having sex. Lonely man looking for companionship, doesn't know how to go find it, so he buys it. Just give you a sense, this is the cynicism of Judah. This is the cynicism we saw before. Ma betza, what's the profit in killing him? And if you're lonely, so you buy a woman for an hour. It'll cure your loneliness. So he goes into her, right? He goes into her tent, the tent with the red light in front, right? What will you pay for sleeping with me? Ma betza, right? What's the going rate, right? And he says, I'll give you a kid from the flock. I don't know what you get for a sheep in those days, but whatever it is. She said, okay, but your flock is there. How do I know you're going to tell the truth? You're not going to deny this later. Give me a pledge. Leave me your American Express card. And she said, And he says, what pledge? And she, give me your seal and your cord and your staff. That's really interesting, by the way. Seal, cord, and staff. What are those? Yeah, what is it?
It's a cylinder seal.
Yeah.
The first form of writing.
A first form of writing. It's your signature. It's your identification.
Inscribed on a circular thing with
Right.
a hole.
Right.
Put a leather thong on it, and then you would roll it over wet clay.
Yeah.
And it would create an embossed version of the inscribed picture on the cylinder.
Right. So why not just take the seal and the cord that it's on and the staff? I want to suggest that this is a symbol of his masculinity. Seal, cord, staff. I think that this is symbolic, right? Leave me your American Express card. But this is more than that. These are symbols of his masculinity, right? So he gave them to her and he slept with her. And she conceived and she went on her way. And she took off the veil and went back to being a widow. Judah sent a kid. Judah fulfilled his promise. But by then there was no prostitute. The whole thing was gone, right? And they said, where's the prostitute? He says cult prostitute. That's not wrong. Where's the prostitute in Naim? You know, there's no one here, right? I couldn't find her. They said, there's been no prostitute here. Okay. Let her keep them, lest we become a laughingstock. 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law has played the harlot. She is with child by harlotry. She's not allowed to have sexual relations with anybody. She's married to Shelah, to the last son. But she shows up pregnant, which means what? Adultery. What's the penalty for adultery? Death. Right. Rather gruesome, thank you. Bring her out, said Judah. Suddenly he becomes a man of justice, right? Bring her out. Let her be burned. Right? Let's have our justice. Okay? As she was being brought out. I mean, this is great. This is great suspense, right? I mean, they're taking her out to the pyre, as it were. She says, wait, I am with child by the man to whom these belong. Anyone recognize this American Express card? Right? And she added, now listen carefully, examine these, whose seal and cord and staff are these? Now, Isaac is blind, and Jacob steals the birthright and the blessing from the blind Isaac. In the tent, Jacob is then fooled, gets the wrong wife. In the night, Judah goes in at night and doesn't know that it's his daughter-in-law, and Judah then sells Joseph to the Midianites, to Egypt, and takes the coat, dips it in the blood, and brings it back to his father and says, examine this, do you know who it belongs to? She says exactly the same words. Examine this, do you know who it belongs to? Examine this, do you know who it belongs to? Right? I want you to look at yourself. Do you know who you belong to? Do you have any, is there anything, any character in you? Is there any heart? Do you have a soul? Right? It's just that Judah recognized them, and he recognized, in that minute, what does Judah recognize? Exact minute, what does Judah recognize?
She's more righteous than he is.
She's more righteous than he is. His judgment was all wrong. She has just done an incredibly selfless act. She has dressed up as a harlot, put herself in danger of, he could keep his mouth shut, by the way, and she'll die, and no one will ever know, right? If he just says, I don't know what those are, no one will ever know. She has just put herself in death and harm's way. For what purpose? For her own purposes? For purpose, but in order to protect the integrity, the immortality of the family. She has done a selfless act for his family, and he was about to kill her for it. Does that sound familiar? Suddenly, Judah realizes there's another way. There's another way to be in the world. That just grasping, Yaakov, just grasping, in the end is not a way to live a life. And suddenly, in this moment, I suggest to you, Judah grows a soul. Judah grows a soul, and he realizes, he hears her say the exact same words he said to his father with the bloody coat. He realizes what he did to his father. He realizes what he did to his brother. He realizes who he has been, and maybe he begins to realize what he can become, and he makes this quiet prayer, give me a chance, God. Give me a chance to fix it. Give me a chance to make it up. Give me a chance. And when he stands in front of the prime minister of Egypt, who is his brother in a mask, and he's taken Benjamin, Judah realizes that's the moment that he prayed for. This is the moment that I get to make up for the man that I was, and Judah grows a soul. And it's all Tamar. No. And it's all her. It's all her. And that's the last we hear of her in history, right? There's one other place where we hear of her in history, by the way. One other tiny little reference to Tamar. You know what the reference to Tamar is? When Ruth goes into Boaz, and she has a child, right? The Bible says, may you prosper like Peretz, because Peretz, the son here, Peretz, is going to be the ancestor of Boaz. May you prosper like Tamar. You went into the darkness, but instead of stealing the birthright, you brought back a blessing. Have a good Shabbos. We'll see you next week. Take care. Lovely. Welcome to our community. We're so glad you're here. What do you do in the world?
I've got taking care of them. And
Good, wonderful.
my dad.
Wonderful. I'd love to see you. We'd love to have some time together. So glad. Where do you live? Where are you living?
Right on Dickinson Street, about 5
Oh,
minutes.
Mamish, you're right across the street. Wonderful.